Commander Lyra Voss stood at the observation deck of Mining Station Hyperion, her weathered hands resting on the railing as she watched the dance of ice and rock in the vast Kuiper Belt. The station's massive windows offered a panoramic view of what most would consider chaos, thousands of asteroids and ice fragments moving in seemingly random patterns. But to Lyra, it was a symphony of motion she learned to read since childhood. "Grandmother," Maya's voice called from behind her. The Ishimura family sensors picked up something unusual in Sector 7. The young woman, barely 20, moved to stand beside her grandmother, her dark eyes reflecting the starlight. Lyra nodded, unsurprised. The Ishimuras had always had a gift for sensing what didn't belong among the asteroids. Their mining techniques, refined over 4 generations, involved complex gravitational mapping that often revealed things other families missed. What kind of unusual? They say it's not moving like debris should. Too controlled, too precise. And it's big, about the size of a standard processing facility. The older woman's lips curved into a slight smile. After 50 years of mining the belt, she knew that anything moving with precision through this chaos wasn't natural. Tell the families to continue normal operations. Have the Chen Martin's crew move their survey route 2 degrees sunward, standard pattern theta. Maya's eyes widened slightly as she recognized the code. Pattern theta. Maintain appearance of normal operations while establishing a detection grid. Should I notify Earth Defense? Not yet. Let's see what our visitor does first. Lyra turned her attention back to the belt, where dozens of mining ships were going about their daily work. To an outsider, it would appear completely routine. Vessels moving between asteroids, processing facilities extracting water and precious metals, survey ships mapping new resources. But Lyra saw the subtle changes beginning. The Rodriguez family ship adjusted its collection nets at a slightly different angle, their sophisticated mineral sensors now capable of detecting any approaching vessel. The Patel operation shifted their ice processing schedule, the crystallization patterns in their storage tanks forming perfect electromagnetic detection arrays. Throughout the belt, every family operation made minute adjustments to their standard procedures. Nothing that would appear suspicious to an observer, just the normal variations of daily mining work. But together, they created an invisible web of surveillance covering millions of cubic kilometers of space. "Contact," Maya reported softly, monitoring the integrated feed from all family operations. The Ishimuras were right. It's a ship, design unknown, currently holding position behind asteroid cluster 2187. Lyra watched as the Chen Martinez survey vessel passed near the cluster, their routine resource scanning patterns gathering detailed data on the visitor. The Rodriguez's collection nets shimmered as they caught the sunlight, each thread now part of a vast signal array, sharing information between all belt operations. "They're watching us," Maya said, "running active scans of our mining operations." "Let them watch," Lyra replied calmly. "Everyone maintains normal operations. The Patel family can begin their scheduled maintenance cycle." The Patel's massive processing facility began powering down systems for routine checks, a completely normal procedure that happened to create a perfect sensor shadow across that sector of space. In that shadow, 3 other family operations adjusted their positions slightly, establishing optimal defensive angles while appearing to simply continue their work. "Visitor is moving," Maya reported. "They're approaching the outer processing zone." Lyra observed as the alien vessel emerged from hiding, its design unlike anything in human records. It moved with impressive precision through the asteroid field, clearly confident in its superior technology. But it had never encountered anything quite like the Belt families. "Send to all operations. Protocol Echo 7, Lyra instructed, a basic emergency protocol that every mining family learned in their first years of training. On the surface, it appeared to be nothing more than a standard safety procedure for dealing with unexpected debris fields. Throughout the belt, mining ships began adjusting their positions according to long-established safety protocols. Collection nets were drawn in to protect them from damage. Processing beams were powered down in precise sequences, Survey vessels altered their routes to avoid potential hazards. But these simple safety measures, practiced for generations, served another purpose. Each movement was precisely calculated, each position carefully chosen. Without ever appearing to do so, the mining ships had surrounded the visitor in a three-dimensional web of overlapping fields of influence. "They're scanning the Ishimura operation now," Maya noted. "Full spectrum analysis." "Good," Lyra smiled. The Ishimuras always put on the best show. The family's mining vessel continued its work, the crew expertly demonstrating their traditional techniques passed down through generations. Their movements were beautiful in their efficiency, each action serving both its obvious purpose and its hidden one. The alien vessel moved closer, clearly intrigued by what appeared to be primitive but effective mining methods. It showed no sign of hostile intent, but neither had it announced itself or attempted communication. That alone told Lyra all she needed to know about their visitor's intentions. "Send to Earth Defense," she instructed Maya. "Unidentified vessel in the belt. Situation contained. No intervention required." It was the same message the Belt families had been sending for over a century. Earth's official military never needed to intervene because the Belt's real defense system was already active, hidden in plain sight among the daily activities of thousands of miners going about their work. Lyra watched as the alien ship continued its observation, unaware that every movement, every scan, every reading it took was being monitored and analyzed by the combined sensor networks of a dozen family operations. The visitor thought it was studying primitive human mining techniques. In reality, it was receiving a carefully choreographed demonstration of just a fraction of the Belt's true capabilities. "They're about to learn," Lyra murmured, "why no one interferes with the Belt families." The lesson was about to begin, taught not with weapons or threats, but with the quiet expertise of generations of humans who had made this chaotic region of space their home. They had learned to turn their daily work into an art form, and in doing so, had created the most effective defense system humanity had ever devised. One that had protected Earth's resources for over a century without ever firing a shot. The alien vessel, which the mining families had begun calling the Observer, moved through the asteroid field with what its crew likely thought was impressive stealth. Chief Engineer Sarah Rodriguez watched the readings from her family's processing facility, noting how their visitor carefully adjusted its course to minimize debris disturbance. "Amateurs," she muttered, her fingers dancing across the control panel as she adjusted the facility's resource extraction beams. The subtle changes in beam frequency would appear to any observer as routine calibration for different mineral densities. In reality, each adjustment mapped another section of the visitor's whole composition. "They're still trying to figure out our navigation systems," her cousin Miguel reported from the sensor station. The Rodriguez family had always specialized in understanding how things moved through the Belt. 4 generations of watching ice and rock dance through space had taught them patterns that no computer could quite grasp. Sarah nodded, continuing her work. "They think we're using basic gravitational mapping. Haven't figured out that every piece of debris they see us avoiding is exactly where we want it to be." Throughout the Belt, other families were performing their own specialties. The Jiao operation was conducting what appeared to be routine maintenance on their solar collection arrays. Each mirror adjustment sent precisely coded light pulses to other family operations, sharing data about the visitor's movements. The Chung family's ice mining procedure released clouds of crystals that just happened to interfere with certain scanning frequencies. "Message from Station Hyperion," Miguel announced. "Commander Voss says it's time for Phase 2. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Phase 2. Demonstrate capability without showing intention. It was one of the first lessons every Belt child learned, wrapped in stories about efficient mining techniques and family traditions. "Signal the Patel operation," she instructed. "Tell them we're ready for the scheduled resource transfer." The massive Rodriguez processing facility began its standard end-of-shift procedure, preparing to transfer refined materials to the Patel family storage facility. It was a routine operation that happened dozens of times each day throughout the Belt. But this transfer would serve another purpose. As the two facilities aligned for the transfer, their combined mass created a gravitational lens that subtly altered the paths of nearby debris. To the visitor, it would appear that the humans were simply dealing with an inconvenient surge in asteroid activity. They wouldn't realize that each piece of redirected rock was now part of an intricate detection grid. "The observer is adjusting course," Miguel reported. "They're trying to maintain their sensor lock on the Zhao operation." "Of course they are," Sarah replied. The Zhao family's seemingly primitive solar arrays had probably caught their attention. Any advanced species would wonder how humans managed to efficiently collect solar energy at this distance from the sun using such basic technology. They wouldn't realize that efficiency wasn't the array's primary purpose. Throughout the belt, other families continued their work. The Cori operation's mineral surveys created complex electromagnetic patterns that looked like nothing more than background radiation. The same family's debris collection runs maintained perfect spacing for communications relay. Each operation added another layer to the invisible defensive network that had protected Earth's resources for generations. "They're launching probes," Miguel announced. "Small ones, trying to blend in with the debris field." Sarah watched as the alien devices emerged from their mothership, sophisticated pieces of technology designed to gather detailed data about human mining operations. The probes moved with impressive stealth, their paths calculated to appear random. But they were entering an environment that humans had studied for over a century. Every family operation automatically adjusted their work patterns in subtle ways. Collection nets shifted angles by fractions of degrees. Processing beams adjusted their timing by milliseconds. Survey routes incorporated minimal course corrections. To the visitor, it would appear that the human miners were simply responding to changing conditions in the debris field. They wouldn't realize that their probes were being gently shepherded into positions where their scans would reveal exactly what the belt families wanted them to see. "Incoming transmission from the Patel facility," Miguel said. "They're ready for transfer initiation." Sarah began the transfer sequence, her movements deliberate and precise. The process would take exactly 12 minutes, standard procedure for this type of operation. Each minute would demonstrate another aspect of human mining capability, all while appearing completely routine. As refined materials flowed between the facilities, complex patterns emerged in the transfer stream. To an observer, they would appear to be nothing more than efficient resource management. But encoded in those patterns was a message being broadcast to every family operation in the sector. The observer's probes were now positioned exactly where the belt families wanted them. Each one had been subtly maneuvered into place not by advanced technology, but by the combined efforts of dozens of mining operations going about their daily work. "Signal from Station Hyperion," Miguel reported. "Commander Voss says it's time to show our visitors why the belt stays free." Sarah nodded, initiating the next phase of what appeared to be a routine transfer operation. Throughout the belt, other families did the same, each continuing their normal work with subtle adjustments. Together, they began demonstrating just how thoroughly humans had mastered their environment. The lesson would be clear to anyone watching closely enough. The chaos of the asteroid field wasn't a hazard the miners had learned to survive. It was a tool they had learned to use. Every piece of debris, every gravitational eddy, every radiation surge was part of their domain. The observer was about to learn that it hadn't found primitive human mining operations to study. It had wandered into humanity's first and most effective line of defense, a system so perfectly integrated into daily life that most of Earth's own military didn't fully understand how it worked. And like every other visitor before it, it would leave with a profound appreciation for why the belt families had remained undisturbed for so long. Dr. Amina Patel stood in her facility's education dome, surrounded by a class of young miners from various belt families. Through the transparent ceiling, they could see the distant shape of the alien vessel still methodically studying what it thought were primitive human operations. "Today's lesson," she announced, "is about the importance of family techniques." Her hands moved gracefully through a holographic display showing traditional Patel crystal growing patterns. Each family brings their own expertise to the belt. Together, We create something greater than any single method could achieve. The children watched intently, already understanding that these mining lessons contained deeper meanings. Young Wai Zhao raised his hand, his eyes bright with comprehension. Like how my family's solar arrays work with the Rodriguez processing beams. Amina smiled. At 12, Wai was already grasping the subtle interplay between family specialties. Exactly. Your family's arrays capture and redirect sunlight for energy collection. But when that light passes through the Rodriguez extraction fields, it creates a detection grid. Maya Voss interrupted excitedly, then blushed at her outburst. Correct, Maya. Amina nodded. Each family's techniques evolved to serve multiple purposes. The paddle crystal gardens provide essential materials for Earth's terraforming projects. But their growth patterns also generate interference fields that mask belt communications, supplied Carmen Rodriguez. Her family's gift for understanding motion extended to energy patterns as well. Outside the dome, they could see the Kari family survey vessel conducting what appeared to be a routine asteroid composition scan. The children watched as the ship's sensors swept methodically across a sector of space, gathering data about mineral content and structural stability. Tell me, Amina asked, what else is the Kari ship doing right now? The students studied the vessel's movements carefully. Finally, Raj Singh spoke up. They're mapping the observer's blind spots. Each scan pattern overlaps with gaps in their sensor coverage. Very good, Amina smiled. And why does this work so well? Because it's real. Several students answered in unison. This was one of the first principles they learned. Every action in the belt had to serve its stated purpose perfectly. The best deception was simply doing your job with excellence. Through the dome's ceiling, they watched as the alien vessel adjusted its position, clearly trying to maintain sensor lock on several mining operations simultaneously. The movement triggered subtle shifts in a dozen family operations, each responding with perfectly routine adjustments that just happened to maintain the belt's invisible defensive web. Your families have spent generations perfecting these techniques, Amina continued. The Zhao solar collection methods started with Wai's great-grandmother. The Rodriguez motion tracking systems evolved from mineral separation procedures developed by Carmen's grandfather. Each generation added their own improvements while maintaining the core principles. She brought up another holographic display, this one showing the complex dance of mining ships throughout the sector. Each vessel moved with purpose, their seemingly routine operations creating layers of coverage and capability that no single system could achieve. This is why we teach the way we do, Amina explained. Every family technique contains layers of knowledge. When you learn crystal growing patterns from the paddles, you're also learning about wave interference. When the Rodriguez family teaches you about processing efficiency, you're learning about motion prediction. Each lesson builds on centuries of experience. The children nodded, already familiar with how knowledge was passed down through the families. They'd grown up with stories that were actually technical manuals, games that taught orbital mechanics, and songs that encoded complex operational procedures. Look, Maya pointed through the ceiling. The observer had launched another probe, this one trying to mimic the movement patterns of belt debris. The students watched as nearby mining operations automatically adjusted their work patterns, their routine activities gently shepherding the probe into a position where its scans would reveal exactly what the families wanted it to see. How long before they figure it out? Carmen asked. They won't, Amina replied confidently. Not completely. Our strength isn't in any single technique or technology. It's in how everything works together, in knowledge passed down through generations and improved upon by each new family member. She gestured to the holographic displays showing various family operations at work. The Kauris perfect their survey patterns over decades, each generation finding ways to gather more detailed data while maintaining the same basic movements. The same family's debris collection routes evolve constantly, every new pilot adding their own refinements to century-old techniques. Through the dome, they could see the observer continuing its methodical study of what it believed to be primitive but effective mining methods. It had no way to know that every scan, every reading, every bit of data it collected was being shaped by generations of human experience. This is why we remain free, Amina told her students, not because we have superior technology or powerful weapons, but because we have something far more valuable: the accumulated knowledge of generations of families working together, each contributing their own expertise to create something greater than any single group could achieve. The lesson continued as the Belt families went about their work, each operation demonstrating excellence in their specialties while contributing to the greater whole. The children watched and learned, understanding that they were part of a tradition that stretched back centuries, a tradition that had turned simple mining work into an art form and created the most effective defense system humanity had ever devised. And somewhere above them, an alien vessel continued its observations, unaware that it was witnessing only the surface of something far more complex and beautiful than it could imagine. Fleet Admiral Vexnar of the observer vessel, Stellar Inquiry, sat motionless in their command chair, multifaceted eyes processing streams of data from their ship's sensors. After 3 standard cycles of studying the human mining operations, something wasn't adding up. Analysis complete, their science officer reported. These humans are achieving efficiency rates that should be impossible with their level of technology. Their mining operations extract resources with 92% efficiency using equipment that should only be capable of 60%. Vexnar's antennae twitched thoughtfully. Throughout the asteroid field, human mining vessels continued their work, their movements appearing almost clumsy by the standards of advanced spacefaring races. Yet somehow, they were accomplishing results that even the most sophisticated automated systems couldn't match. "Launch the test probe," Vexnar ordered. It was time to see how these primitive miners would react to a real challenge. In the belt, Commander Lyra Voss received the alert immediately. "Unknown device deployed from visitor vessel," Maya reported. "It's generating a controlled gravitational field, affecting local debris patterns." Lyra watched as the alien probe began its work, creating deliberate disturbances in the asteroid field. The movements were precise, calculated to disrupt the carefully organized chaos that the mining families had maintained for generations. "Send to all operations. Continue standard procedures," Lyra commanded. "Let's show our visitors how Belt families handle unexpected conditions." Throughout the sector, mining ships adjusted their operations with practiced ease. The Rodriguez processing facility altered its extraction beam timing by microseconds, compensating for the changed gravitational conditions without appearing to notice them. The Jiao solar arrays shifted angles slightly, their power collection patterns adapting to the new gravitational lensing effects. On the observer vessel, Vexinar's science team recorded everything. The humans are maintaining operational efficiency despite a 47% increase in local gravitational fluctuation, one analyst reported with disbelief. Their adjustments appear to be entirely manual, yet they're achieving response times that match our automated systems. The probe increased its gravitational output, creating more complex disturbance patterns. In response, the Belt families demonstrated generations of experience dealing with the forces that shaped their home. The Cowrie survey vessel adjusted its scan patterns, using the probe's gravitational effects to enhance their detection range. The Sing collection routes incorporated the new forces into their debris management calculations. "Fascinating," Vexnar murmured. "They're not just adapting to the changes, they're using them." Each human operation had seamlessly integrated the probe's disruptions into their work patterns, maintaining perfect efficiency while appearing to do nothing more than routine adjustments. "Increase probe output to maximum," Vexnar ordered. "Let's see how they handle serious disruption." The probe's gravitational field intensified, creating waves of force that would challenge even the most advanced automated mining systems. But the Belt families had spent centuries learning to dance with the forces of space. Each operation adjusted its work patterns in perfect coordination, their movements appearing completely independent yet somehow achieving precisely synchronized results. The Rodriguez processing facility aligned its extraction beams with the gravitational waves, using them to enhance mineral separation. The paddle crystal gardens incorporated the new forces into their growth patterns, creating structures that shouldn't have been possible under normal conditions. The Jiao solar arrays transformed the gravitational lensing into perfect focusing elements for their collection systems. Impossible, the observer's science officer declared. They're achieving better results now than before we introduced the disruption. These readings suggest their efficiency has increased by 23%. Vexinar's antennae quivered with sudden understanding, because they're using our probe as part of their operation. Every force we introduce, they incorporate into their work. The Admiral studied the sensor readings with new appreciation. These humans haven't just learned to survive in chaos. They've mastered it. Throughout the belt, family operations continued their work with practiced precision. Each movement, each adjustment, each perfectly timed response demonstrated generations of accumulated knowledge. The humans weren't fighting against the probe's disruptions. They were treating them as just another aspect of their environment to be understood and utilized. New reading. The science officer reported urgently. The probe's gravitational field is being redirected. Vexnar watched in amazement as the combined effects of dozens of human mining operations gradually reshaped the probe's gravitational output. No single ship was doing anything unusual, just normal course corrections, routine beam adjustments, standard processing procedures. But together, their actions were transforming the probe's disruption field into a perfectly controlled tool for enhancing their work. They've turned our test into their advantage, Vexnar realized, not through superior technology, but through perfect understanding of their environment and flawless coordination of their operations. The observer's sensors recorded as the belt families demonstrated their true capabilities. Each family operation maintained its unique methods while contributing to the greater whole. The Rodriguez extraction patterns complemented the Jiao energy collection systems. The Kauri survey techniques enhanced the Sing debris management procedures. Every action served multiple purposes, all while appearing to be nothing more than efficient mining work. We're not testing them, Vexnar finally announced. They're testing us, showing us exactly why this sector has remained undisturbed for so long. The Admiral's antennae dipped in respect. Recall the probe. We've learned what we needed to know. As the probe's gravitational field diminished, the human operations smoothly adjusted their patterns again, maintaining perfect efficiency as they returned to normal conditions. They had passed the test not by demonstrating advanced technology or military might, but by showing how generations of knowledge and cooperation could turn simple mining work into something extraordinary. The lesson was clear. The Belt families didn't need weapons or warships to defend their home. They had something far more effective: the combined expertise of countless generations, each contributing their unique skills to create a system so perfectly integrated that it appeared to be nothing more than humans doing their daily work with exceptional skill. Admiral Vexnar stood before the High Council of the Stellar Confederation, presenting the findings from their observation mission to Earth's asteroid belt. The chamber's holographic displays showed recordings of human mining operations, each movement now revealing layers of meaning that had taken weeks to fully comprehend. We went to study primitive human mining techniques, Vexnar began, antennae moving in patterns of profound respect. What we found was perhaps the most sophisticated defense system ever created, one that exists entirely within the normal operations of civilian mining families. The recordings showed various mining ships going about their work. A Rodriguez processing vessel adjusted its extraction beams, the movements appearing routine until Vexnar highlighted how each adjustment maintained perfect defensive coverage of nearby operations. A Jiao solar collection array shifted its panels in what seemed to be a standard power optimization pattern, yet the movements created complex sensor disruption fields. These humans have achieved something remarkable, Vexnar continued. They've turned their daily work into an art form that serves multiple purposes simultaneously. Every mining operation, every routine procedure, Every traditional technique passed down through generations contains layers of capability that we're still trying to fully understand. The council watched as the recordings demonstrated how different family operations worked together. The paddle crystal gardens created interference patterns that enhanced the cowrie survey scans. The Singh debris collection routes maintained perfect communication relay positions while appearing to simply follow efficient gathering paths. Our analysis suggests this system has evolved over at least 3 centuries, Vexnar explained. Each generation of miners added their own refinements, perfected their family's techniques, found new ways to integrate their work with their neighbors. The result is a defense network so thoroughly embedded in normal operations that it's virtually impossible to disable without shutting down resource extraction for the entire Earth system. One council member leaned forward, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns of skepticism. Yet they maintain no military presence in the region. They don't need one, Vexnar replied. The mining families themselves are the defense system. Their daily work creates overlapping fields of detection, communication, and response capability. Any attempt to interfere with their operations automatically triggers defensive measures that appear to be nothing more than routine adjustments to changing conditions. The recording showed how the Belt families had responded to the observer's test probe. Each mining operation had adapted to the gravitational disruptions perfectly, their combined actions transforming the probe's interference into a tool for enhancing their work. This is why the Earth's asteroid belt remains unrated, Vexnar concluded, not because it's defended by weapons or warships, but because humans have created something far more effective, a system where civilian expertise and defensive capability are perfectly merged, where every action serves multiple purposes, and where generations of knowledge combine to create something greater than any single technology could achieve. The council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. These humans had accomplished something unprecedented. They had turned their normal work patterns into such a perfect defense that most potential attackers never even realized they were being countered. Your recommendation, Admiral? The council leader asked. That we formally recognize Earth's asteroid belt as sovereign human territory, Vexnar replied without hesitation. Not because we fear their defensive capabilities, but because they've demonstrated something worthy of our deepest respect. The ability to turn simple civilian work into an art form that protects their home while continuing to serve its primary purpose perfectly. The recording showed one final scene. A family mining vessel teaching their youngest crew member the proper way to adjust their collection nets. The lesson contained everything: efficiency, adaptation, preparedness, and the seamless blending of civilian expertise with defensive capability. These humans have created something beautiful, Vexnar concluded. They've shown us that true strength doesn't come from superior technology or military might, but from the patient accumulation of knowledge and the wisdom to use it well. Their asteroid belt isn't defended by weapons. It's protected by generations of families who have learned to do their work with such skill and coordination that they've turned the very chaos of space into their greatest ally. The Council's decision was unanimous. Earth's asteroid belt would remain undisturbed, not because of any treaty or show of force, but because humans had demonstrated something that every spacefaring race could appreciate: the transformation of ordinary work into extraordinary achievement. In the belt, life continued as it always had. Mining families went about their daily tasks, each operation maintaining perfect efficiency while contributing to the greater whole. They didn't celebrate the Council's decision or mark it as a victory. They simply continued their work, passing down their knowledge to the next generation, refining their techniques, and demonstrating that humanity's greatest strength lay not in the power of its weapons, but in its ability to turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. The belt remained free, protected not by fleets or fortresses, but by the combined expertise of countless families who had learned to make their daily work into something more, a perfect blend of productivity and preparedness, a system so elegant that it appeared to be nothing more than humans doing their jobs with exceptional skill. And that, perhaps, was the greatest achievement of all.